All right. I guess I'll host.
D- what did you think this was?
It's not streaming yet, is it?
Oh, it's streaming.
Why is it streaming?
We're gonna cut this out. Don't worry.
Okay. What are we calling this show?
Uh, this show I just put what did I put? That's copyright.
What are we? Yeah, right. What are we gonna call this?
I just put podcast number one tri
Yeah, but what do we want to call this?
This show generation gap. I don't know.
Maybe get a pen, pencil, anything I can write with. What's up? It's not connected. Sorry.
That will seem good.
All right. Well, I wasn't really talking, but okay. So what are we calling this?
Calling it generation gap. The Grice and Deej show.
How about Generation Gap Sports Chat?
Okay, okay.
You don't like it?
I like it. I like it if you say so. Yes.
You're out? You're not even gonna wait to see the show?
That's crazy.
Oh well,
Oh,
that's.
wow, that sucks. That sounds like a you problem.
What's that? One viewer. Well, that's creepy.
Who
Who's
could
viewing?
Who could possibly be looking at this right now?
Okay. What's up? That's a granola bar, yeah.
Matty Ice. That's Matt Ryan's nickname. This is good content, like for any podcast. You know, like the start before it. No, this is great. Good.
Yeah. See you later.
Yeah, it's great. That's exactly what it's called.
You want a Tri-State Sports Review?
I already. That's the episode name. Like.
Oh, okay. I
this is
gotcha.
Generation Gap Sports.
Gotcha.
Sports
Chat.
chat. Yeah.
We're on.
Yeah,
So
we've been on.
great. All right. You ready?
Yeah, I'm
All right.
ready.
Let's do this.
All right, bam.
From the studios of 117 in the main hallway of the campus of Amityville Memorial High School, you're listening to Generation Gap Sports Chat with Noah O'Deej and Matt Grice as we break down the tri-state area sports. And certainly, Noah, there's been plenty to talk about after a real quiet period following the Super Bowl. Free agency not heating up in the hot stove arena in baseball until very recently. But now the Yankees, the Mets, the Giants, the Jets all heating up. Knicks, not so much, but we'll get to that a little later. But we have to start with the big news in Major League Baseball today, and that's Mike Trout, who signs a 12-year extension with the Anaheim Angels worth a reported $430 million.
Yeah, it's crazy when you see such a long contract, especially such a great center fielder in Mike Trout in Los Angeles. I personally did not think he would sign the extension, especially, you see the Angels, their success in the past couple of years has not been up to par, especially he's a very good center fielder, and him staying there for 12 years, and it's must show that they think they're headed in the right direction.
Well, what's interesting, Mike Trout universally is considered the best player in Major League Baseball. He's the face of the sport in a sport where the faces of the sport don't really mean that much. Mike Trout does not have the power of a LeBron James. Mike Trout does not have the power of an Odell Beckham or a Tom Brady. It's just different in baseball. So with the Angels investing this kind of money, they've made it clear that Mike Trout is a part of their future. He's the best player in the game. But as you said, I wonder, is that even going to matter? Because the Angels are a team, they haven't done a lot of winning lately. I don't know if they're prepared to do that. I know a lot of people are excited about Ohtani coming back. He's not going to pitch probably until the middle of the season, still recovering from his arm injury. His bat will be in the lineup, though. But is this team good enough with an aging Albert Pujols? And I look at this contract. Bryce Harper, probably a top 5 player in baseball. Some people might put him at number 2 or 3 behind Mike Trout. He barely signs a deal for, and listen, I would take this right now. No complaints. 14 years, $330 million. That's an annual hit of $26 million or $25 million a year. Whereas Mike Trout is getting, I believe it's $36 million. Correct me if I'm wrong with the math here. Is Mike Trout $10 million a year better than the next best player in the game? I don't know if that makes sense.
I don't think it makes sense for the Angels, or for Mike Trout. After this contract is over, he's going to be the highest paid player of any major American sport. He's going to be making over $537 million in career earnings. But what's that without a championship or any hardware for your game? Like, I don't understand why he would not try and succeed in a bigger market or take less. You asked, is it really about the money or is it really about winning for him? Because yes, you're getting paid that much, but what are the Angels and the front office gonna do to continue to build that team? Yes, you bring up Ohtani, who, when healthy, is great, but other than that, he's this arm injury. Who knows? Who knows if he's gonna ever come back the same, and who knows if his pitching is gonna be the same? Obviously, yes, he's a great hitter, but you wonder if they're gonna continue building up this organization to be a superpower, and especially in a small market in Anaheim. It's not really, I don't know if that really made sense for him to sign that long of an extension.
Well, it guarantees him, as you said, to be the richest player in sports history. Nobody has ever signed a contract like this. And remember, in baseball, there's no salary cap. They have a luxury tax penalty, of which the Angels are nowhere near that number. I think you have to look at what did Mike Trout want. And he's probably very happy being in Los Angeles. The weather is great. It's a baseball town, but not like New York, not like Boston, not like St. Louis. So if the team stinks, people are going to go, eh. If the team is great, people will go, oh, that's nice. And you know what? The celebrities will go to the games. The fans will still show up. If the place is packed, if it's half empty, Mike Trout gets to cash his check no matter what. So for Trout, it's a no-brainer. I think the Angels panicked, though. I think the Angels were worried that what happened to Bryce Harper and the Washington Nationals, what happened to Manny Machado and the Baltimore Orioles, and remember, the Orioles weren't going to sign Machado, which is why they traded him to the Dodgers. But the Nationals wanted Harper back. They offered him 10 years, $300 million back in October before the market ran cold. I think the Angels were just concerned they were going to lose their best guy.
But who knows? Maybe them losing Mike Trout would have been better for them as an organization rather than committing him to such a long contract. And possibly, I think it potentially can ruin his career if they don't do anything better, if they don't do anything to build up this organization quick.
Well, one thing that it does affect is now the Yankees are out of the game in the future, as are the Dodgers, the Red Sox, those big market, high spending franchises, because you know that they had targets on Mike Trout's back when he became a free agent. And that's over with. The Yankees will not be going after Mike Trout in a couple years now. With that being said, the Yankees certainly have a lot going on in camp right now. Is a battle going on at first base. That's really the only position of consideration. When talking about the Yankees camp, the storylines coming out right now are injuries, who's going to fill in the outfield, and who's going to be the starting first baseman. And I guess we should start with that. Luke Voit, Greg Bird. Coming out of last season, Luke Voit, by far and away the favorite, batted over .330 for the Yanks, supplied them with power. This was, of course, only over a period of a couple of months. Greg Bird doesn't even make the postseason roster. However, Greg Bird, lefty bat, better first baseman, a guy that the Yankees, they love his swing. They would love to get that extra lefty bat in the lineup. History of injuries, history of slumps. It seemed like a given that Luke Voit was going to get this, but the two of them have been raking since spring training started.
I mean, if you look at Greg Bird coming into the previous season after the ALCS, I thought that the Yankees had a real gem at first base with him. I expected him to go into last season better than before. I expected him to have a breakout season for the Yanks. but he actually was quite disappointing last season. And Luke Voigt, obviously you mentioned, was great for them, especially in the postseason. So, but now you see Greg Bird's name come up, especially they just re-signed him. So I believe it was a 2-year deal. But it if if they have a clear competition for first base, I think that's actually better for the Yankees as a whole because you have two great talented players who are vying for the same position. Whoever gets that spot is going to be the best for them. And obviously, Yankees injury has been pretty bad. They have a bad turn of events when it comes to injury. Last year, they lost Aaron Judge for 6 weeks. Didi's been out. It's injuries have been plagued the Yankees for the better part of the last season, and hopefully coming into this year, they can get healthy and hopefully spark another postseason run.
Competition is great in all sports, and we're seeing that it's bringing out the best in those two players. I agree. I think the insurance is important at first base because look at the outfield situation right now. The Yankees came in with Giancarlo Stanton. Brett Gardner they brought back for 1 more year. They have Aaron Hicks, who they just signed to a very team-friendly contract, 7 years, $70 million. And Aaron Judge over in right field. Oh, and there was that other guy, too. What's his name? Oh, yeah, Jacoby Ellsbury. Remember him? He's been long gone. He actually reported to camp very quietly on Sunday, and most people kind of expected that. It was just, who cares? But now, Aaron Hicks, his back's hurting. That may open things up. Clint Frazier, is he ready to come in and take over as a backup? Do you want him being a backup, or would you rather see him be an everyday player at the AAA level? Will he have concussion problems? You also have problems within the pitching staff. Tanaka, the concern's always that his elbow is going to go at any time. And CC Sabathia is not going to be ready for the start of the season. And I'll tell you what, Yankees are a little worried right now about their ace and Luis Severino. He's got some inflammation in his rotator cuff, and it started out as he was going to be shut down for a couple weeks, may not make the beginning of the season. Now they're saying they may not see him till May. So certainly injuries are something the Yankees are going to have to keep an eye
on. Yes, especially with their pitching, over the postseason, the pitching ended up being a real problem against Boston in that series. Luis Severino, who knows what's going to happen with him? He's an up and down player. When he's up, he's really good. When he's down, he's a disaster. Sabathia, obviously, we know, very high up there in age, is reported to retire at the end of this season. He's hanging up his cleats.
He's going to join us in the press box.
Yeah, hopefully. And we had Tanaka. Again, injuries are crucial for this team. So who knows if they'll go out and get another pitcher who maybe they can bring one up from the minor league level, and who knows, they always seem to have gems in their young pitchers.
And you know what? That's the difference between the Yankees and the Mets. Let's jump ship and head over to Port St. Lucie and discuss what's going on with these Mets, because I feel like the last few years the fan base goes into spring training really, really excited, and then disaster strikes. In 2015, the Mets were in the World Series. They lost to the Royals, as we know. They had this incredible pitching staff, a lineup that was aging, had some holes, but had a guy by the name of Yoenis Cespedes in there that was supposed to carry them, and it has been nothing but a disaster. Last year, the Mets got off to an amazing start,
a really good start.
11-1, and the rest of the season, they were the worst team in baseball. A lot of that had to do with injuries, Cespedes, their starting pitching rotation. But let's be real. If this Mets team can do what it has not done in a very long time, and that's stay healthy, they could be really good.
I do think that, too. That pitching staff is one of the best in baseball. You have the Cy Young winner, Jacob deGrom, coming back, a great young pitcher in Noah Syndergaard coming back. Also, a lot of their postseason moves, I feel like, shows that they want to win now. They signed a lot of veterans in the offseason. I think the Mets want to win and want to show that they can be a really good team, and they, at the moment right now, they're not a rebuilding team.
I actually disagree with you a little bit there, because I see a guy, Brodie Van Wagenen, and he comes in. He's definitely brought some energy to a position that the Mets, let's be honest, their front office has been pretty dull for a long time.
That's a fact.
Brodie Van Wagenen is a guy, as a former agent, loves the spotlight, wants the microphone. Getting a little irritated the other day, though, when getting asked questions about how contract talks were going with Jacob deGrom and trying to get him signed long-term, which is a concern of the fan base. not so much the franchise at this point. But if this team can stay healthy, they can be good. But, are the Wilpons serious about winning now? Because Todd Frazier's hurt. Who's playing third base? David Wright is gone.
Yeah.
There was a guy on the free agent market that nobody was signing by the name of Manny Machado, who could have been a perfect fit for that Mets franchise. And, oh, by the way, Bryce Harper, he leaves the Nationals, which is great for the Mets. But then he goes to the Phillies, which is in the same division.
Exactly.
Two players that the Wilpons were not willing to spend money on. So they have a lot of young players. Another team with a battle at first base, Dominic Smith and Peter Alonso. Alonso seems to be the front runner right now. He's having an incredible spring. But this is a team that could have been better if they were willing to spend.
Yeah, who knows what the Mets' idea is right now for the season. The signings they made, the talent that they have on that team, and especially when healthy, they can be a real fringe team, I feel. If they go to their full potential, who knows? The sky's the limit for that team. But as long as I think the pitching staff stays healthy, as long as they know what their direction is, then we'll see. Because I don't think this Mets team is a team that's in the middle of rebuilding. That's not at all.
I think that's the problem. I think they're in the middle ground right now.
Exactly.
Are they contenders? No, they're in a really tough division.
Very
I
tough.
think the Braves will take a step back this year. The Marlins are off the chart.
Yeah.
But the Phillies are going to be better. I know the Nationals lost Harper. They still have a really good lineup and a killer pitching staff.
Yes. The best in baseball, I would say.
I think the Mets' best case scenario, probably the third best team in that division last year. If they stay healthy, maybe they could surprise some teams, but we'll have to see. Again, you're listening to Generation Gap Sports Chat here on the Amityville Broadcasting Network. And baseball about to get their season underway, but things are certainly heating up in the NFL. It's a fun time. As soon as free agency opens, look, football is a 12-month-a-year sport, even if games aren't going on. And certainly the Jets and Giants have been very, very busy. The big news coming down after Dave Gettleman trades Odell Beckham to the Cleveland Browns a few days ago, and that has shaken the football world here in New York.
Yeah, I think that after that trade, I think you felt the real shift of power in the NFL in the rankings and hierarchy. That was a crazy trade. When I first saw that, when I saw the news break, I was extremely dumbfounded because they obviously signed last season Odell Beckham to a 5-year extension. Dave Gettleman said earlier in January that he didn't sign Odell just to trade him. And you see this big trading for a first-round pick, a fourth-round pick, and safety Jabril Peppers to the Browns. I don't know if the Giants knew what they were doing when they traded him. Could they have gotten back more? For sure, they definitely could have gotten back more. Jabril Peppers is a great, interesting player. He's been good for the Browns.
He fills a need.
He does. It does at safety in the Giants secondary that has extremely large gaps.
The whole defense. Let's be real.
Yes.
The whole Giants defense is a mess. And kind of that Mets conversation of where are they right now? Are they rebuilding? Are they competing? Are they middle of the road? Because I think middle of the road is probably the worst place to be.
Yes.
And Dave Gettleman, when asked, he had a press conference the other day, he had no game plan, at least none that he was willing to share with the media and therefore the fans of what is his end game? What are they trying to do? Because did they trade Beckham so they could get another pick, so they could move up in the draft and get a quarterback, Kyle Murray perhaps? Or are they going to try to retool their defense with a bunch of, they have 2 first-rounders and try to just retool that defense? Is Eli Manning going to play the whole season? Is he going to be kind of a player coach? What is going on with this team right now? And I think that's where the fans are probably angriest because they just want to know. Are we tearing it down and rebuilding? Are we trying to compete? Because let's be honest, if the Giants end up going 6-10, 7-9, finish 4th in the division, and get the 14th pick overall in the draft next year, what good does that do them moving forward?
It does not. And it's weird you say that. After the Odell Beckham trade, they just signed Golden Tate to a 4-year deal.
Which signals to me that they're not rebuilding.
Exactly. So you have a veteran receiver in Golden Tate, a pretty talented receiver. Not as talented as Odell.
A guy on the downward trend, though.
Yes,
and a guy who also said that he wanted to go to a team where he could win now because he understood that his years were limited, I think he's 31 years old at this point. So what are the Giants doing? Why is he signing with them? And I understand the fan base is annoyed. Just they want to know what's the plan.
And not only that, you're giving up one of your best receivers. That means Saquon Barkley, your running back that you drafted a year ago, who had a great rookie season. What are you going to do with him? Are you going to have him be on a terrible team? And he's obviously a multiple touch guy, a great running back who needs a lot of touches in order to succeed. He's a running catching back. If he stays, let's say for the next 4 years on Giants, he's not going to be the same player coming out, especially in an offense that doesn't really know. Eli's probably going to be handing the ball off a lot to Saquon this season.
And you know what's really strange, and I feel bad for Saquon Barkley because this is a guy that's going to spend the prime of his career on a mediocre team. And by the time the Giants are ready to win, with what I see right now, can things change? Yeah. Do I put some faith in Dave Gettleman that he actually has a plan? I hope so. I don't know. But you figure at this rate, with what I'm seeing, by the time the Giants are good, Barkley's going to be a non-factor. Historically, with the lifespan of running backs being 4 or 5 years, are there Emmitt Smiths that can play for 12 years? Sure, but that's generally not the way it goes. And if you have a situation where your whole offense runs through Saquon Barkley and he's getting the ball 350 times a year, it's going to wear him down. But what's funny about this whole thing to me is it's kind of like living in a bizarro world. And the Yankees have come back on top in baseball. But in hockey, the Rangers are down. The Islanders are the talk of the town. In basketball, the Knicks are off the map. And the Nets are doing very well. And in football, it seems like the Jets are the ones doing what you would have expected the Giants to. And ironically enough, it could have been the Giants that drafted Sam Darnold last year. And instead, they decided to go with Saquon Barkley. Now, the Jets, they have Sam Darnold. They go out and they sign Le'Veon Bell. This is a team that's trending in the right direction, whereas the Giants, who are usually considered the class of the NFL, people are going like this, shrugging their shoulders, not knowing what's going on.
It's weird right now in New York sports. You have a lot of the major teams getting outdone by their stepbrothers. The Jets they built up their offensive line. They got Le'Veon Bell, who's going to need a great offensive line if he's going to be doing good things for the Jets. Sam Darnold, who I would say had an okay rookie season. Obviously, the Jets' offense was back and forth. They got an offensive-minded coach in Adam Gase, who I guess did okay with Ryan Tannehill in Miami.
Who's no longer on Miami.
Exactly. Now
he's supposed to be a quarterbacks guy, though. That's
yes.
why they brought him in. He's supposed to be an offensive guru. And I know media and fans were making fun of him after his introductory press conference. Crazy eyes, they were calling him. But I got news for you. If the Jets come out and win, nobody's going to care. They're going to love this guy. And I like Sam Darnold a lot. Everything you hear about him is that he's got all the tools, he has all the gifts, and he's progressing at an appropriate rate.
Yes.
Peyton Manning was terrible his first year. Troy Aikman, terrible his first year. Sam Darnold was okay on a bad team with no weapons. Let's see what he does with Le'Veon Bell in there. I think the Jets, I'm not saying they're going to make a run at the playoffs this year, but if they can go 7-9, 8-8, and Darnold shows improvement, they may be on the cusp of something special.
Well, you say they might not make the playoffs. This is a team that I believe went 6-10 or 5-11 last season. You look at a division that got extremely weak. You look at a division that got extremely weak over the last offseason. Patriots are always going to be in the same place. The Bills have done nothing to show that they're improving, and obviously the Dolphins got worse. Yeah, they might be the second best team in that division. They signed C.J. Mosley as head end. They've got again a revamped O-line. Who knows? Maybe not this season, but next season they're going to be the talk of the town. And they have the third pick in the draft that could end up being pass rusher Nick Bosa out of Ohio State. I see the Jets trending upward.
Thanks again for listening on Generation Gap. We have one more topic, and it is not about a team trending upwards, and that is, of course, the New York Knicks, who are mirrored in dysfunction, whether it's on the court, whether it's in their past front office troubles with Phil Jackson, if you want to go back even before that, Isaiah Thomas. And then in the last week, everything with James Dolan and banning a fan for chanting at him to sell the team. On Sunday, St. Patrick's Day, 500 Knicks fans went to the game wearing green shirts that said "Ban Dolan." It was given out by a law firm that was looking to try and get Dolan to do something so that they could possibly put a lawsuit together for free speech rights. Remember, Madison Square Garden is privately owned, so Dolan can do whatever he wants. Everyone that had one of those shirts, they had it confiscated. At least, those that security were able to see. And, oh, by the way, this team has 14 wins.
Yep.
This team may have the worst record in the
They
NBA.
have the worst record,
Their
yep.
worst, I mean, when it's all said and done, they will probably have the worst record in franchise history. And, oh, by the way, because of the new draft lottery rules, they're still only going to have a 14.5% chance of getting the number 1 pick, getting a guy like Zion Williamson. And I don't know if Kyrie Irving, Kevin Durant, do these guys even want to come here? Because this is a team that could be a superstar team next year, or this is a team that could be bad for another decade.
Well, okay, as a Knicks fan for probably the better part of my lifetime, I've sat through the 17 and 65 season not 4 years ago to see that turn into Kristaps Porzingis, who was a budding superstar.
Say goodbye.
Yep, exactly. Surprisingly, I saw a stat the other day that said the Knicks have only signed to a second contract one player they drafted out of the first round. They've only one time. Meaning this is not a team that likes to think about the long term.
This actually goes back. You probably weren't even born yet, but when Ron Artest, a St. John's player, was I think the Knicks were picking at 14th or 15th that year. And Ron Artest was excited. The fan base was excited because the Knicks were up, and somehow Ron Artest hadn't been drafted yet. And you know who the Knicks got? Frederick Weiss, European player who never played 30 seconds in the United States. And, of course, Artest was taken with the next pick, and the rest is history. And certainly Artest had his share of negative history, but that seemed to me to be, and that was kind of at the end of the strong years of the New York Knicks. That was kind of the first in a long line, as you said, of picks that just have not worked out. And the one that baffles me the most is James Dolan allowing Phil Jackson to make his pick for Frank Ntilikina and then get fired a few days later.
Yeah, I'm still iffy on Frank Ntilikina. I think, again, he's the worst offensive point guard in the NBA. The Knicks, again, I look at this team, and I see a lot of budding young stars. I see a great player in Alonzo Trier, Mitchell Robinson, who's been doing great things, and Kevin Knox, who's trending upward. But hopefully, and again, the Knicks fans like to think of hope because that's all we can have. Hopefully we get a top 3 pick, and hopefully that does turn into Zion because you do have teams that are in the same realm as the Knicks who need point guards, and that could be a Jay Morant or R.J. Barrett. And Zion could hopefully fall to us as the Knicks. And we have $70 million in cap space. We were lucky enough in that Kristaps Porzingis trade to get rid of both Tim Hardaway Jr.'s and Courtney Lee's contract in the same year.
Yeah, but if you can't convince somebody to come here, it doesn't matter how much money you can pay them. If they don't want to play for this franchise, where are the Knicks going? And that's what we're going to have to wait and see. That's your hope. Because if they can sign 2 max deals over the summer and get Zion Williamson, there's a lot of things that have to go the Knicks' way for that to happen. They could go from, I won't even say pretender, they can go from the laughing stock of the league to making Madison Square Garden the mecca of basketball once again. Because let's be real, that term has not been true for a very long time.
I mean, the best thing to ever happen to the Knicks in probably the last 5 years was, I would say, Linsanity. That was pretty good for us.
Which, I guess they made the right call of getting rid of him because he turned into a average to below average player, but I think the timing was typical Knicks.
Yeah.
Terrible. He was people always go to the Garden, but he was getting people excited to go again. It's just been years of mistake after mistake, whether it's who your general manager is. Donnie Walsh was in the process of fixing that team, and he was forced to bring in Carmelo Anthony, trade a whole bunch of players, and then was let go, and then it just fell apart so quickly. So I can't fault Dolan for spending money because he spends it, but this is a team that cannot seem to get out of his own way, and it's going to be this summer that really tells the story of how the last 20 years been for nothing. All that suffering from Knicks fans been for nothing, or does the future look bright? And we're just not going to know.
I hope it looks bright. I mean, last bright thing we had was probably Mario Hezonja blocking LeBron James James's shot on Sunday. That's the last bright spot I've had.
And
watching the
ironically,
Knicks.
that's not what you want to see because you don't
Exactly.
want them winning games right now.
Exactly. It was a bittersweet. Let's say that's just bittersweet, and that's what the Knicks do. They just have bittersweet moments.
We'll have to see what happens. We thank you so much for tuning in on Generation Gap Sports Chat here on the Amityville Broadcasting Network. We'll have a lot more sports between now and next week, and we'll have to see who fills in on the slot. Generation Gap, does that mean you need somebody significantly older than you to take my
I mean,
place?
you're definitely significantly older, right?
You better watch it, kid. Thanks again for tuning in. For Noah Deej, I'm Matt Grace, and this has been Generation Gap Sports Chat right here on the Amityville Broadcasting Network.